unit owner insurance. So, some months ago, we placed the, association master policy coverage, with a carrier called, Auto Owners, and they're a pretty large company headquartered out of Lansing, Michigan. So they are the underwriting insurance company. Okay, Baer is the local agent. So your premium dollars from the association get paid to Auto Owners. They're the one that, in the event of a claim, they're the one that writes the checks, and they collect the premium. So, so we work with them. We work with a number of carriers in that arena. So they're a good fit. So, and we spent the board and I spent a lot of time before we placed it with them, you know, reviewing coverages and things like that, selecting coverages, deductibles, and things like that. So, what I want to talk to you briefly tonight before we start all the fun stuff is, like Michael says, as a unit owner, what am I supposed to carry in terms of my unit coverage? And so you all need to carry what's called a condominium policy, or in the industry call it HO6 policy. Whoever you deal with on your personal insurance will know either of those terms. It's also important to know that in the state of Wisconsin, the insuring obligations are set forth within your condominium documents, okay? So, condominium documents decide who pays what. How claims get sliced and diced. Is it an association responsibility? What does the association carry? What do the unit owners carry? So it's very common that the unit owners have a lot of questions in terms of what they're supposed to carry, because insurance obligations, it's like a game of telephone that gets passed on from unit owner to unit owner, and then everybody, it's not necessarily correct. So tonight we're gonna set the record straight so you know exactly what you're supposed to insure, okay? So, because there's common misconceptions about what you have to insure as a unit. And I'll give you some, I'll also go so far as to tell you if I lived there, what I would do. So I'm not your agent, but I would, you know, kind of give you some guidance to tell you what I would do if I were you. So the way your documents are written, the master policy carries the bulk of the coverage, okay? So your unit, your walls, your wall finishes, your installed carpet, your plumbing fixtures is insured by the master policy, okay? So now yours, here's where you find that. You probably say, well, how do I know that? How do I know that? Well, it's because you all have access to these condo documents, so you should, or I'm sure your property manager can send you a PDF copy. But this is where the insuring obligations are set forth, and they happen to be set forth on, you know, page 12, article, paragraph 11. That's what page 12 and 13, paragraph 11 and 12. Paragraph 11, page 12 and 13. What it says in summary is that the association carries the insurance on the units and the unit finishes, and the unit owners are responsible to insure any upgrades beyond what was installed by the declarant, and the declarant is the builder, okay? So if you, as a unit owner, upgraded your unit and maybe you installed installations post new construction, okay? So if there's been several owners, you know, sometimes it could get sliced, it could get confusing, but anything was added to the unit post-builder's grade, or whatever the builder, I think, did Bill Shield develop this?
Yes.
Yeah, this was a Bill Shield project. I knew Bill, very nice man. This was one of his projects. So, so with that being said, most of the insurance is covered by the association. So if your unit's worth $300,000, for example, you don't have to carry insurance for $300,000, okay? You need to carry some insurance, but you need to carry insurance for the upgrades. You know, if your unit's pretty standard, builder's grade, you don't need a whole lot. But if someone installed high-end countertops, you know, Brazilian hardwood floors or something out of the ordinary, things like that, the association insurance policy responds to builder's grade, and you as a unit owner and your insurance company responsible for the difference between a builder's grade and the high-end Brazilian wood floors. Does that make sense? No? So that's a lot. So I'll kind of just open it up here to see if we have any questions before I go on. So, any questions? Go ahead.
My question pertains to the leaks that we've had in building 2. I don't know about any other buildings where there was leakage from the ceiling. The ceiling had to be ripped open. The insulation pulled out. It was dripping wet. There was a fire sprinkler leak.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, we paid our deductible, and we have through Baer.
Mm-hmm.
We paid the $500 deductible, and then our insurance company covered the rest of the fix. So they had to reseal the ceiling, put in insulation, reseal the ceiling, and then we had to repaint the ceiling because it needed to match.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, the association said that was our responsibility for anything from the walls in. What I'm hearing you say is, it's not, it's the condominium responsibility. Can you clarify?
Well, all water claims are going to have different nuances and things like that, so it's difficult to, one water claim could be a little different from the next, because water claims result from any number of sources, things like that. They could result from building envelope deficiencies, to sprinklers, to neighbors upstairs who, you know, neglect their plumbing. So all those scenarios can have, you know, different outcomes and different explanations in terms of obligation. What I can tell you is that if there's a claim, the board notifies Kelly, the property manager, and then we triage that to determine, you know, what's the scope of coverage here? Is there coverage? Where does it lie? I can't speak for something. What happened to you, I can't, it's hard for me to speak to that scenario because I wasn't involved in that.
Right.
But they're all a little different. I can tell you that. And I can also tell you that if it could be a potential association claim, but if it's if the loss is under the association master policy deductible, then that could be assessed to the unit owner. Perhaps that's what the case was, I do not know. For example, the current deductible is $25,000. All right, so if you have a claim, if you have a water claim that's confined to your unit and it's $10,000, the board or Kelly or myself is going to tell you probably better to submit this to your individual insurance company, you know, for consideration and subject to your unit owner deductible. So the deductibles are getting high in this world, okay, and the board has elected this, you know, deductible in order to keep the overall cost, you know, affordable, okay? So, and that's why we did the math a couple years ago, and that's why we selected the deductible that we did, okay? So, the deductible it's a 25, it's designed to keep the costs reasonable and shift some of these nuisance claims, maybe not a nuisance claim, but these smaller claims to be handled, you know, by the individual unit owners, so.
When something similar to that happened in my unit, both my insurance company and the building insurance company denied it.
Well, see, then again, I don't know what the circumstances were surrounding that. You know, all water claims are different, so I really don't know what, I don't know what
I'm
the,
just frustrated that neither one would.
well, I agree, that seems unusual, without knowing the fact pattern that led up to, you know, what was the damage, what was the fact pattern, what caused it, I do not know, so, but,
This was all about 5 years ago,
okay.
before, and you were not insuring us then.
So,
But we've had issues this year, right?
Yes.
so, go ahead.
I'd like to understand something that you said that I maybe didn't hear all of. You said there was a $25,000 deductible for the building policy, and then we all have our own deductible on our own coverage. And if it was a $10,000 claim, you suggested that they claim it against their personal policy?
It's a non-recoverable claim under the association master policy, because it's under that 25,000 deductible, so it's not recoverable.
And so
True.
did you continue and suggest that then they reimburse the $10,000 to the homeowner?
Well, these are board decisions, but generally they don't pay pay the unit owner $10,000?
Well, the unit owner is making a claim that wouldn't necessarily be their claim. I'm just asking, what's the accommodation for what that does to future insurability for the unit owner? Particularly when when it would be normally a building claim.
Well, it's gonna, the insurability factor gonna depend on the frequency. I don't know how many, if you had, a water claim every year for 5 years, that's gonna impact, your insurability, that's true, on a personal level, that's true, so.
I can appreciate that some of the specific examples you can't speak to because you don't know the facts of the matters, but I mean, in general, if you have the source of the leak is from a common element, that should, I would think, fall to the master policy.
True.
If the source of the leak is my neighbor upstairs, for example, then it's that person's policy, it's not
Well,
my
not
policy.
necessarily, that's when it gets weird, okay, so, that's still potentially, so let's say Mr. Upstairs leaves for work in the morning.
There's a faucet running and it overflows.
Well, so let's say Mr. Upstairs leaves and he goes to work, and then during the day while he's gone, his supply line to his wash machine or his supply line to his toilet suddenly lets loose, okay? He's gone. He doesn't know any, everything was fine when he left or she left, and then sometime during the day, all heck breaks loose, and then water cascades to, Mr. and Mrs. downstairs. Well, that is, that's going to be an association master policy claim subject to the deductible. So the insurance for Mr. and Mrs. Upstairs, generally, I've never seen them respond to the, the damage to Mr. Downstairs, okay, so.
Even if it's something they do.
Well, if it's something they do, the scenario that I gave you, the supply line lets loose, that's nothing that they did, okay?
Yeah, you gave me a more complicated scenario than I was
So,
asking about.
if Mr. Upstairs, overflows his bathtub because he takes a phone call, okay, and then bathtub overflows, well, that's negligence, right? So, negligence is a different theory in the world of insurance. Negligence is a different theory. So, the liability policy for Mr. Upstairs could potentially respond to the damages to Mr. and Mrs. Downstairs, okay? Because that's why I say, all these water claims are just they all got their own nuances, they're all a little different, so it's hard to take a coverage brush and say everything is this and everything is that, because it's not necessarily true. I wish, it'd be nice if it was, but it's also insurance, and that's why it's so darn confusing, because it's insurance, so. In summary, you're insuring everybody should have access to these. That article tells you what you're supposed to carry. You can talk to your insurance person and say, here's my condo documents, this is what I'm supposed to insure. You have to insure for, upgrades beyond, what the builder did, okay? And you also wanna have loss assessment coverage. So if a claim does get submitted and the association has to absorb a $25,000 deductible, the board is gonna have the right to assess that deductible potentially assess that deductible amongst the affected unit owners. If you have a condo policy, you should have some built-in loss assessment coverage if you look at your condo policy. And that pays for a loss assessment assigned, by the board. So go ahead.
Does that document talk about how much loss assessment you need?
This one, I've got one here that I brought with me, and I'm gonna leave some copies. I've only ran off 30, but I can get this, I'll have Mike Sargent email this, and you guys can post this on, do you have a posting wall, something like that? Or what?
We can send it out with email.
Send it out
You
with
can
email.
send it out. But this is a good little flyer. It talks about that loss assessment coverage and how inexpensive it is. So, I remember I said, if I lived there, what I would do. If I lived there, I would probably carry 50,000 in loss assessment coverage. That's what I would do, and that would cost me probably around $20 a year to carry 50,000. Very inexpensive. Okay, so that's what I would do. So I'm gonna carry a minimum of building coverage of minimum of $25,000 to cover the association deductible, okay? Minimum, plus my upgrade, maybe I have some upgrades, maybe I don't have any upgrades, maybe my unit is just standard. So, since the deductible, I would carry minimum 25,000 on my building coverage, and then you get your coverage for your things, your stuff, right? Your furniture, your clothing. Everybody's different on that, so I can't help you on that. But then I would carry, probably 50,000 on loss assessment coverage. That's not a crazy thing to do. So, but this flyer will help lay it out.
We can leave this up there.
And we'll leave this up here. But these are some hard copies, but we'll post it. We'll send a PDF of this. There's 30 of them that you can pass those out, but we'll send an attachment, so,
Forward it to everyone.
yeah, so you can post it and send it out, so. Go ahead.
So I know I have the loss assessment,
Uh-huh.
and it's the amount that you stated. What is the other? It sounded like there were three things.
Right. If you look at your insurance bill
Yeah.
from be it maybe your State Farm, maybe your American Family, maybe your whoever, it'll say coverage A or building coverage, and then you'll have one amount, okay? And that's to cover anything within a unit that's attached to the unit, okay? If you have to cover that, if you have to pay to fix the wall or something like that, okay, and it's covered, they could pick it up under that.
Okay.
And then you've got coverage B, which is gonna be your stuff, okay? And like I said, everybody got different amounts of stuff. Some a lot of stuff, some minimal stuff. And then coverage C, I believe, there's another coverage called additional living expense, and that's that's why you need a condo policy, because if many times you get a bad claim and then you have to move out, you're gonna get a hotel for a month or something like that, and that insurance will pay for that hotel for a month, and then you have the loss assessment. So those are the parts. So.
Thanks, Dan.
Any other questions? I will leave a card here, so if you do have any question, you can email me. Not next week, because I'm going to Florida. Maybe I'll see some of you down there, I don't know.
All right.